This is one of those moments where one must wing it because my script is not on the teleprompter. So perhaps someone can pass me my notes, and until they do, I will share with you a little bit about who I am. First, I want to thank the incredible Stephanie Shriak for the incredible leadership you provide Emily's List. You are truly a force of nature. And I want to thank, of course, America Ferrara. We were talking backstage. She's such an incredible woman. She's a daughter of California, but she really is a model of who and what our young women are and can be. And so I thank you, America, for that really generous introduction. You know, this is such an incredible year, this 30th anniversary of Emily's List. And I feel like every campaign I've ever run and every campaign I've ever won has been fueled by the voices of women, starting with my mother, Kamala, and my sister, Maya, who is here, and extending to a family of powerful women, women who didn't listen and who never gave in, even when they said we couldn't and wouldn't win. And I'll tell you, we heard that a lot. Back in my first race for District Attorney of San Francisco, I challenged a two-term incumbent who comes from an old political family in San Francisco. His nickname is KO because he was known for being a boxer who knocked people out. And in that race, I started out at a very healthy 6 points in the polls. For those of you who don't know what that means, it means 6 out of 100. So I can't tell you how many pundits came up to me and said, Kamala, it can't be done. It will be too hard. It might be too much work, God forbid. It's not your time, they said. But I didn't listen. I heard the same thing again when I ran for Attorney General of California. And at that race, I faced a very popular two-term incumbent district attorney who was a Republican in Los Angeles. And again, no one thought we could win. But believing we could do it, we won both campaigns. Thank you. And so, but let me share you what happened after each campaign. Very creative press people would come up to me, and they'd put a microphone in front of my face, and they'd say, so, Kamala, what's it like to be the first district attorney general as a woman? And I'd look at them and I'd say, well, I don't really know how to answer that question because, you see, I've always been a woman. But I'm sure a man could do the job just as well. So I just want to say that I'm very honored to be a part of such a historic night, this 30th anniversary of Emily's List. And as we all know, milestones are very important. They help us to see the road, and they help us to think of ourselves in the context of all that has occurred before us. They help us to remember what we stand for and why we engage in such hard work. And we, of course, have had a season of many such reflections. We have celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, the March on Washington, the 60th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. And for me personally, these singular moments defined the circumstances surrounding my birth. You see, my parents met when they were graduate students at the University of California, Berkeley, in the 1960s while they were active in the Civil Rights Movement. My sister Maya and I, we joked that we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting for this thing called justice. Marching and shouting for justice. And the idols, the heroes, of course, of that movement included the great architects, the lawyers, Thurgood Marshall, Charles Hamilton Houston, Constance Baker Motley, who understood the skill of the profession of law to translate the passion from the streets to the courtrooms of our country, and to do the work that we know consistently must be done, of reminding some folks of that great promise we articulated in 1776. We are all and should be treated as equals. Right out of law school, my parents then gathered around, my family gathered around, and they said, okay, Kamala, what are you going to do in your fight for justice? Because, of course, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. They said, what are you going to do in your fight for justice? And I was very excited to tell them, well, I've decided I'm going to become a prosecutor. And some of you are laughing because you have a sense of who my family is. And yes, some of them thought it was, at best, a curious decision. And with others, I had to defend the decision like one would a thesis. But what I said then is what I maintain today as the top cop of the biggest state of this country. Law enforcement has such a profound and direct impact on the most vulnerable among us, and has as a responsibility to be a voice for the most voiceless and vulnerable, and in the process of giving safety, has the responsibility to give dignity. And to give dignity to the most voiceless and vulnerable, who include, of course, thank you. And who are our most voiceless and vulnerable? Well, we know. They are immigrants, women, poor people, people who are the subject of hate crime, who deserve to have a voice and to be treated as equals. And in over 20 years as a prosecutor, there is one point about justice that I like to emphasize. Whenever I charge someone with a crime, it does not read the name of the victim versus the name of the defendant. It reads the people versus the defendant. And there's a very fundamental and important point about why we do that. Our beautiful democracy and system of justice has said that when any one of us has been harmed, it is a harm against all of us. A crime against any one of us is a crime against all of us. And so I think about that and bring that to bear in the work that I have done as District Attorney of San Francisco, now as Attorney General of California, and with my intention to become the next United States Senator from the state of California. And it is because I believe that standing up for the people means working for an economy that works for all of our people. I believe standing up for the people means being a voice for children, even though they don't write the big checks or have the fanciest lobbyist in DC. It means defending our environment. Why? Well, for me, not because I have any particular desire to hug a tree, but I have a very strong desire to hug a healthy baby. It means being a voice for our immigrant communities and the millions of folks who in that community are living and working in the shadows. It means keeping faith with the 1.8 million Californian veterans who have been more than doing their job of holding up their end of the bargain, and it's time we stand up for them when they come home. And it means standing up for our Constitution, including the right of women to control our own reproductive health care decisions and our own bodies. So in closing, thinking about the 30-year legacy of Emily's List, I think about all the women candidates over the years who have stepped up but were told no. They were told it can't be done. They were told it will be too hard and it's not your time. And I think about all the times that Emily's List refused to allow those women to hear that word, refused to allow them to take no as the answer. And I think about an evening in 1992 in San Francisco, when I was a young lawyer, and I arrived in the ballroom of a very big hotel in San Francisco to look up on a stage and see two women who are named Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein. And those two women who stunned the nation, based in large part in the support and belief of a young organization founded by a woman called Ellen Malcolm. And of course, I think about another great California woman, Nancy Pelosi. And I think about the real possibility that for the first time in our nation, we might have a woman as president of these United States. And so I say, as we celebrate these past 30 years, let's rededicate ourselves to the next 30 years, and let's take the heed of the great Coretta Scott King, who famously said, "Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in each generation." And folks, we are that generation. Let's win in 2016.